Good evening. You are with Nancy Flemming, host of Money and Motivation,
Okay, here's
with our favorite Mark Windsor co-host, and of course Joe, as always. Tonight we are really happy to invite a very special guest all the way from Northern California, in fact, Redding, California, and I used to live there. Catherine King. She is a bankruptcy attorney and an author. And we're going to let her tell her story a little bit tonight about money and motivation. She did write a book, Paths to Prosperity.
nice.
Very nice. And came about writing this book from doing some classes. So I think that she'll really be helpful with us tonight as far as helping us with our motivation, our attitudes about money, some really good hints and clues and suggestions and directives. So Catherine, how are you this evening?
I'm good. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
And we appreciate you coming to Arizona.
Yeah.
Really do. Tell me a little bit about how this book came about. You're a bankruptcy attorney. You're obviously talking to people a lot about money on the other side of it, though.
On the downside of it,
yes.
But looking up. Yeah, daily. I meet with a lot of people and just have had a lot of experience just working with people through hard times.
So what is something, now you wrote the book on the path to prosperity, so I'm guessing that means that you have found something in common with a lot of the people who come in.
Yeah, there's just, when people come in on a bankruptcy basis, the reality is they're sort of at the bottom of the pit in some respects and challenged typically financially. But just in working with people through their situations, there's just a real visibility of an emptiness internally that the pursuit of money didn't bring them what they thought it would, and the debt has certainly landed them in a different position than they would have expected.
Now that's interesting. You say the pursuit of money didn't bring them what they thought it would bring. And I notice, so I would like you to comment on that. And then I notice in your book, Paths to Prosperity, and there's also a workbook with it. And we'll visit that website so you can see it. You talk a little bit about poverty and your definition of poverty. Let's talk about that for a minute, because most people have pretty much a one-dimensional idea about poverty. So tell me about that.
Yeah, poverty typically refers to just simply a lack of money. You look around and you either have a negative bank account or they just don't have the typical things of life. And the definition I really like to look at and focus on in the book is stated by an author and speaker whose name is Graham Cook, and he says, poverty is the acceptance of meager possibility, accepting limitation and being governed by lack or scarcity. And you can just really see a lot of times in people when there is that their life is governed by what they don't have rather than what they do have. And so I can't do this because, I can't do that because, I can't, there's always excuses why things can't happen because they don't have something, time, money, or energy typically.
That's very interesting. And so when you're getting people in the bankruptcy mode, they obviously did have something at one time.
Well, certainly in this cycle of bankruptcy, so much of it has been predicated by the, economic downturn and, the bubble bursting, so to speak, in the stock market and now in the real estate arena.
Right, and then the job losses also.
Yeah, all of it is coming like a domino effect to take away all that they had and realizing, wow, I'm really lacking now in a significant way.
And so let's go to the other side of that. Then how would you define prosperity? So you have people coming to you who I'm sure some have come from a time of prosperity, right?
Significant prosperity.
Okay, and so tell us a little bit about what prosperity is in your definition.
Well, I think, in America, we've so captured the definition of prosperity in a dollar figure. The almighty American dollar is no longer almighty for many people. We're certainly seeing the failing of the dollar and its power and impact. But realistically, prosperity, to me, covers a much wider range of life experience. We think of prosperity as, okay, I have my car, I have my house, I have all the toys that I could want. And yet prosperity, if you have all those toys, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be happy. We think we're happy if we're prosperous, but it doesn't necessarily bring happiness.
And by prosperous, you're making the one-dimensional, the kinds of things. So if a person is prosperous, if they can tick off or check off on a list of things, the house and the car and so forth.
Correct.
And then they expect that will bring happiness. So have you had some people go through bankruptcy that came out of it more prosperous by that definition?
Absolutely. I've had some amazing stories
Tell
come
us
back
one.
to me.
Tell one.
One couple, they'd been married 30, 35 years, and they came in and they were just distressed. And actually, just the husband had come in the first time, and the wife called me a couple days later, and I had a really good conversation with him. I just said, okay, this is what we can do. This is what can happen. And his wife called me up a couple days later, and she said, I want to thank you so much. She said, whatever you did in that office, she said, for the first time in 2.5 years, I heard my husband laugh. For the first time, he has hope. He has perspective. He has vision. And so they went through the process, and it was just really helpful for them just to offload all of this debt that they had accumulated.
In fact, it's quite for them to call back, isn't it, and just be so grateful
Absolutely.
for the change in their lives. And I'd say most that at least I deal with have really a change in attitude.
Yeah.
Of values and perspectives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the neat thing about this is I ran into them about a year later, and they said, oh, can we talk to you for a few minutes? I said, absolutely. What's up? She said, we just finished our Christmas, the last month, and she said, for the first time in 30 years, we went through Christmas debt-free, got to be with all of our kids, everybody got presents, and we were able to take our daughter on a vacation that she had wanted to go to San Francisco for 3 days and go to the opera. All of it debt-free. They said, never have we been able to have a holiday debt-free. She said, it's been transformational. And you encouraged us to give up our car and get a different car so it wasn't so expensive. She said, we love the car we had, and we couldn't fathom letting that thing go. And yet now we have a better car, and we just have a freedom of lifestyle that we just did not ever expect.
So their definition of prosperous includes being free. And freedom
Absolutely.
means freedom from debt. 'Cause we often hear about debt as being in chains, but a lot of people don't feel that way because of this. They think they see it and they need it right now. I really like what you put in your book. It said, what I am looking for is not out there. It is in me.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I just thought that was a really great. And speaking of that, I've been admiring that beautiful necklace. Let's get a shot of her beautiful necklace. Where it tells about the necklace. Where'd you get that?
One of the things that I've done in the last 5 or 6 years, I started a jewelry company, of all things.
I don't know if that goes well with the bankruptcy attorney or not. I'm never thinking about that.
Actually, my front reception area has a jewelry showcase, essentially. And
Really?
clients walk in and they're like, is this really a attorney's office? Absolutely. Take a look.
Now that's
And-
unique. That's definitely, walking to the tune of a different drummer. So how does that tie in? You're obviously not designing jewelry to pump up your law practice, right?
No, I'm not, but it's an interesting mix between the two of them because oftentimes, people are oftentimes in the pit financially, so to speak, and they haven't had the opportunity to purchase anything special for themselves in a long time. And oftentimes I am led to give them a piece of jewelry just as a reminder that there's hope on the other side. And so...
But after filing, of course.
And going through your classes, you have the workbook here, so they've got
I
to
do.
go through the classes so that they get this different mental attitude so that we don't think that prosperity is only having a lot of money, because you can be prosperous, as people have learned, just by being debt-free. And look how happy they were being debt-free because they could do what they wanted and not have to suffer afterwards, paying interest and already having their money spent before they get it. Now, you designed this jewelry. Did your jewelry company have a name?
It's called Kingdom Creations.
Kingdom Creations. All right. And
Yeah.
how do you get the idea to design the jewelry? What do you just doodle on paper? How does that come to you?
Recently, it's been a lot of doodling on paper. I have somebody who works with me, and he actually has the more technical side of things. I don't have nearly the level of patience he does. But I'll make these designs and drawings, and he puts them together, and so it's sort of a co-creation type of effort, which is a lot of fun. And interestingly enough, the expression of the creativity that comes through making the jewelry has caused me to be the happy attorney. People walk in, they're like, there's something different here. I said, yes, I'm a happy attorney. So it's just good to have that balance in life where it's just not all about work, but there's a creative expression as well. And
So in your definition, prosperity then includes doing something that also would come from the heart.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're coming down with prosperity. We've got out of debt is a big thing, right?
Absolutely.
And making sure we're not in bondage to that. And then we've got our attitude. We're not expecting things to satisfy what's missing inside. Because it's really
Correct.
not what's out there, it's what's inside. And the more things we accumulate, it might mask unhappiness or a lack inside, but we ultimately need to really go inside. So by creating jewelry, you become the happy attorney. You're having this creative expression, doing something that I know I have no desire to design jewelry. So if I had to design jewelry, I'd be the very unhappy and very frustrated, whatever. But we're doing a jewelry show to showcase her jewelry over at my office tonight, 1237 South Val Vista Drive in Mesa. And we've got big tables set up with all of her creations. Is it expensive? Is your I didn't even look at the prices. Is your jewelry expensive, inexpensive in the world of jewelry?
It's handcrafted jewelry, so it reflects that. It's not from China. I'll guarantee you that.
It's not from China. That's good.
And therefore, it is not free.
And it probably doesn't fall apart like my barrette I just had in my hair earlier today. We were
Exactly.
talking about this. Speaking of quality,
Yeah.
how many, we can't find pens that work, right? I thought I was alone, and as I'm sharing my pen story, people say, no, I throw so many pens away. Can't find a barrette where the clasp stays in it, and so I'm not even sure where to go for barrette. So if I were able to buy a piece of jewelry where the clasp stayed and it didn't fall apart on me, that would really be a good thing. You want me to tell you my secret how I keep my jewelry on? You're going to love this one.
A safety pin.
Yes.
Super glue.
Yeah, am I not the only one that uses safety pins to keep my jewelry on?
I saw
have
it in my
lo-
mind's eye.
Oh, I have long hair and all this jewelry where the clasps fall off and the jewelry falls apart. I do use a safety pin.
I promise ours won't fall apart.
Well, I actually spend more time buying safety pins than I do jewelry. No, I'm kidding. But I do have a collection of safety pins for that reason. But that is a very beautiful piece. And I actually had seen some jewelry that you did before and was very impressed by the creativity. You want to get her website up? Maybe we can look at her jewelry. Did you find it yet? I'm
Absolutely.
missing it.
Tell people what your name is again.
The website is kingdomcreations.biz, and
Okay. Then your name is what?
my name is Catherine King.
Gotcha. I didn't catch that. That's why I
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
know. No, that's okay.
The Kingdom Creation. See, Catherine King.
And
Kingdom.
that makes sense why we have the Kingdom Creations.
That's right.
So Kingdom Creations, and that's dot
B-I-Z, yes.
dot biz to check out some excellent jewelry. And then you must have 2 or 3 other websites.
We do have a few.
Were you looking for them? Well, the jewelry one's just fun. I thought we'd digress for that for a minute before we go back talking about this money attitude, because you're not doing the jewelry for the money. You're doing the jewelry because you want to express creativity and it makes you happy.
It does. And there is money involved. I mean, I do sell the jewelry, and we've won awards, and there's been definite interest in the jewelry for the last 5 or 6 years. And so,
Well, winning an award, how do you win a jewelry award?
there's a company called Fire Mountain Gems that I buy a lot of my products from, actually. And this is an example of one of the. They've actually put us in their advertisements, and they have contests, and so we've entered some of the contests, and they have awards in different categories, and so we've entered for the last several years and been able to place in significant levels.
Well, I see metal, clay, metal beads, wirework, and chain. So that's what some of your jewelry is, right?
Yeah.
And what's some of the others?
That's a similar contest, and then this is seed beads, and there's several other. There's pearls.
Well, what would
and-
you describe that one then? That doesn't look like it's not
This would
seed
be,
beads.
this would be wire work.
That's the wire work.
Yeah.
Okay, see how you
Yeah.
can tell what a connoisseur I am over here.
Are those all
Creativity is not my
individually?
cup of
Are
tea.
those all individually? Those are all individual pieces,
Absolutely.
all put on one by one. Huh? Very
Yes.
nice.
Oh my goodness,
Yes.
I didn't appreciate that piece.
Put 'em on
well
one by
enough.
one? What do you mean?
One by one.
Yeah.
The necklace.
Okay.
See the necklace, and she's got. See, I've always focused on the piece that was here. That was gorgeous, but I had never thought about the one by one piece put together there on the necklace.
Yeah.
Fascinating. All right, and now when you're doing your jewelry, you feel happy. Tell me how that relates. Do you feel prosperous when you're making your jewelry?
Prosperity has to do with wholeness of self. And so when there's a wholeness in my life, I'm able to express and give to others more freely. And other people know it. There's something different here. You are not the typical attorney. You're not the typical, sit in a suit in an office and give me a line type of person. Because I love to relate with my clients. Some people the other day said, "Oh God, you have to be getting paid a lot, because if you didn't, why would you do this? This has got to be a tedious job." I said, "It's not so much about the money. I said, I don't do this for the money. I do this for the people. I love to relate with people and just see transformation occur in their lives and see, impact. So that is what is significant in what I do in terms of releasing a level of prosperity to people."
So you release the prosperity by your attitude and by your, by who you are on the inside. So you release that to them. I imagine that they send a lot of people to you too because of that.
I do get referrals.
Yeah, I was going to say you probably would, but people would pick up if you were just seeing them and you were grasping out every last nickel you could out of every second that you were talking to them too. So nobody would like to be appreciated like that. So maybe you would, quote, make more money, but would you be more prosperous?
Yeah.
By your definition, if you were doing that, there's a way to make more money, but would you be more prosperous?
No.
No, you would not feel more prosperous. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay, because what we're doing is defining prosperity in a broader sense.
Right.
And in here we've got a little bit of a talk about resources that I really liked. Because, again, we usually think about resources as being the beads that you buy to make your jewelry, or the education that we have, or our, quote, seed money. When people say, I can't do this or I can't do that, and they're looking out from a sense of lack, which sometimes I think, do you think our society conditions that?
Oh, yeah.
So much in society. So we really have to reach inside ourselves.
It's hard to watch TV and not get a sense of the only way to be prosperous is to have money and riches and look beautiful and be perfect, and all the advertisements, they touch up people and make them look better than they are. And yeah, our society's terrible that way. In fact, I did a show once, Nancy, just focused on the false advertising of self-worth, and how if you understand that, it's so much easier to like yourself and not compare yourself to all this fakeness that you see in the media. So absolutely. Think about it. Happy movies, how do they end? Everybody's money prosperous, right? How happy would a movie be if they went through a business failure and had to go through bankruptcy and they came out with nothing? Well, I shouldn't say nothing. We let them keep a lot of stuff. Yeah. But they came out with relatively less stuff, but were very, very happy because they learned, as you're saying, how to be peaceful with themselves and how to accept themselves and how to find joy in the smile of their son and daughter instead of in driving a new car and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this society does it absolutely, Nancy.
Well, that was my feeling because it just, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, where would a person find these resources? Where would they find, in a sense, the moral support? Because if it's not tangible, then it's nothing. And all this news about the Occupy quote move. I hate that word. Don't you hate that?
What,
word?
Occupy Wall Street?
Yes, and it's all about lack. And you've got arrests going on. And I was listening to the news coming, thinking, a whole summer of this. Just go do something with your life instead of destroying other people's. It really is frustrating me. Probably going to make a lot of people mad with that statement, but it is how I feel.
Welcome to radio. I'm telling you what.
Just go, you go do something with your life. You might not, or even go, like you were saying, go do something for somebody else. Now, what would that do? What would that do? It might bring a little bit of prosperity. But we mentioned here other factors in this calculation of prosperity, and you alluded to it earlier, that are looked over, is time and energy. And too often we dissipate our time and energy on the false belief that we cannot live prosperously until we have money. But on the contrary, even those on small incomes can live abundantly if their time and energy are wisely directed. In addition to time and energy, there's another resource, and that's going to be healthy relationships. So we're factoring in, yes, we want to make sure that money is not crippling, lack of money is not crippling us by our own making.
Correct.
You see, we make our own misery by spending money we don't have, thinking that we need that thing. We need to keep up with the Joneses, or everybody else went to Europe.
Well, here's another perspective we get as bankruptcy attorneys, and that's not my primary area always, but the last few years I supervised some bankruptcy attorneys before the market crashed. When the market crashed and they left, I ended up, unfortunately, becoming a bankruptcy attorney for a number of years. But what we learn, isn't that right, that so many people, when you're driving down the freeway and you see somebody in a nice car, you think there's a prosperous person. Or you drive by a nice house and you think there's a prosperous person. Or you see someone dressed really nice, there's a prosperous person. But what we find is when those people start streaming in our offices, we find that there is so much false prosperity as well. Just as there's the false perspective in the media, there's a false perspective in society because so many people are living on borrowed funds. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, interestingly enough, the subtitle of my book is A Guide to Living from Your Heart, Not Your Wallet.
Yeah.
And so many
Great.
people have lived from their wallet, and not because there's cash in their wallet, but because there's credit cards in their wallet.
Exactly. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
That is so true.
Yeah. And so, how do we find our hearts again so we're really living from our heart and not our wallet? And that place of, are all these toys really making me happy? Or if I spent some quality time with my kid, for God's sake, would that actually make a difference in my heart as opposed to the external expression that says, oh, well, I have the boat and I have the car and I have the, X number of, toys in my yard that say that I'm prosperous and therefore my self-worth is validated. And that's supposed to make me happy, but it doesn't.
There are a lot of those who have the proper balance, so I don't want to make it sound like everybody you see who's got a nice car and stuff doesn't have that balance. But I do find so many that come in that haven't found that balance yet. And the process, quite frankly, of losing stuff sometimes helps. I mean, sometimes it just makes them bitter and whatever, but sometimes it helps them discover what you're talking about in your book.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think it goes back to if you can manage the small, then you can manage more and more. So I would agree with you. We do have people who are prosperous, who have the nice car that is paid for, or they have the nice house where the mortgage is low, and so forth, but they generally didn't start there. They generally started small, and I know when I meet people, because I only meet people that have something to work with in my job as a certified financial planner, I don't talk to people that just had a silver spoon given to them. The way that they got to where they are is the way we're told. They just lived carefully, and they found prosperity within, and they saved, and they planned, and they did everything that you read about in the books, and they implemented it. So they took their time and did things that they would enjoy doing together because they had a plan in place. So rather than blow money on a big vacation, for example, they go see the family.
My last show was talking about Costa Rica.
I don't consider going to Costa Rica a big vacation. Isn't it relatively inexpensive to go there?
If you compare it to Europe, yes. If you compare it to Disneyland, no. It was
more expensive than Disneyland.
Well, yeah, the plane, the flight there,
Well, what about if we said Disney World?
Oh, Disney World. That's a Florida one, right?
Yes, the Florida one. You have to fly there.
No, that would probably be also just as expensive, probably.
Because really, the hotels were that much, and the food.
Hotels, depending on where you stayed. Our hotels probably averaged about $80 or so, but they were nicer. Most of them were nice hotels or quaint hotels. But I agree. I'm just kidding. But I agree in the concept that if a person isn't happy inside, the best travel and vacation won't make them happy.
Yeah,
it just won't. And if a person is thinking that, for example, here's another thing. I've had clients, 2 I think, who have won the lottery. And I am telling you, that does not make a change of happiness in somebody's life.
In fact, there's a lot of statistics out about that, where people think if I won the lottery, I would be happy.
It would
but
for
the
me.
Statistics
For a moment. For sure.
You would break the statistic. You would
I
be the happy lottery winner.
Let me tell you a difference, though. Here's the difference with Joe. Joe, at one point in time, was very wealthy. And Joe experienced a loss, and Joe's rebuilt it up by sweat, blood, and tears. And I'm telling you, that makes a difference because the principles that you're talking about there in your book, that's what we're talking about, is getting happiness regardless of your circumstances. That if you're like that and you win the lottery, you're fine.
Right.
But if you're struggling with unhappiness and you win the lottery, you're thrilled for a minute, you think you're happy for a minute, but you don't end up happy.
Well, I think there's other people out there. I mean, tell me if you haven't done this too, where I've done something and I've spent money, thinking that spending the money to create the experience or to buy whatever I was buying would make me happy, and it didn't. And I thought, I'm out the money, but it didn't give me the reward that I thought it would. And so, by my own personal experience, experimenting with doing it, spending money on something and then not spending money on something, and I really have not found a correlation between the two, except unless I combine them. So I'll buy airfare to go visit family, and then there's something good there. But if I were to just take a trip just randomly without a purpose, I don't know that I would feel happy that I had spent that money and been out it. I mean,
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. There's a real correlation. I mean, I think one of the keys is really knowing yourself, and so much of our identity is dictated by external factors. Everybody has to have the latest iPhone. Everybody has to have the newest iPad. They have to have the latest car. Or
it's a Lenovo,
whatever.
just so you know. But that's a good point. Hey, I'll tell you, when I went shopping for this, everybody's over around the iPad latest thing. I looked at those specs, went right down the table, and got this one for $250, and it had the specs of it's got just the specs of that iPad was like $699 or $899, some blasted thing like that.
You know what's funny? I thought when Fry's Electronics started carrying Lenovo, I went into Fry's to look at them because they were a great price. And the guys in Fry's, they said, man, it's the cheapest garbage we've ever seen in our life. Well, I talked to my system engineer who helped design the Intel Pentium chip. He said they're made by IBM. They're one of the best machines on the market.
Oh, I've loved this thing.
And that's what he carries.
I love this thing. And I don't know how
There's
we
a
got
good
on
plug.
that.
There's a good plug for Lenovo out there, huh?
Yeah. Well, again, the point is that some people would have to have that iPad logo, right? That's just what.
Is that what it is?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I guess so.
Oh, yeah.
And those are the things that dictate our identity.
Exactly.
External factors. When
Exactly.
in fact we don't know ourselves to say, you know what really makes me happy is this, this, and this. And I don't care if you have to have an iPad to make you happy. You apparently can be happy with a Lenovo. That's great.
Could have been happy without one, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned years ago, I think there's a scripture that says, in any circumstance that I'm in, therewith I will be content. Or how's Paul say it? I'm butchering it.
Yeah.
But everybody, I challenge you to find it.
I have learned to be content in all circumstances.
Yeah, that's a Paul scripture.
Correct.
in the New Testament. And I love it. I clearly don't love it well enough to memorize it, but I've learned that years ago when I went through. I had a law firm collapse years ago and went through some hard times, and I just learned be content, be happy, no matter what's happening, and really find out what your priorities are. And so I agree. I think that there's wonderful principles in your book, and
I would
could
agree
change
with you on
people's lives.
The key to finding your prosperity is I would agree with that. Sometimes, though, we see people taking this being happy wherever I find myself in the wrong degree, and maybe using it as an excuse to just sit back and not try. So while I agree, yes, we have no choice sometimes, like about certain circumstances in our life, but to find the silver lining, because I believe nothing comes to us in our life without it being a learning experience, and if properly treated with a proper attitude, which again we're people, we all have to work on that, we will end up more prosperous when that happens. And so we've got time, we've got energy, we've got understanding who we are, we have the healthy relationships, all of which contribute. We understand that poverty is feeling like we have a lack all around us, and prosperity is going to be feeling like we live in abundance and we see the opportunities. Years ago, I met out where we live in Arizona. We have people in just two extremes. We have the snowbirds who come here who are very, very well to do at times, and then we've got people who live here in little trailers. And one time I happened to meet the happiest people that I had ever met up to that point, and they lived in this little trailer. I didn't know how they could be happy. This was years ago, and I was a lot younger, and I thought, how could they be happy? They still had to work part-time, and she would take in laundry, and like the old-fashioned days, and do mending and sewing for people, and I don't recall what he did. And then one day, they had a windfall that came to them, and they were going to make the trip of a lifetime. They were going to the Rose Parade. That was their trip of a lifetime. And I was astounded. And they couldn't pay for the whole thing, so their son, with this windfall that came to them, their son was putting in the rest. They were thrilled. That is the only trip I have ever known them to make. But if you were to see them walking around the streets or anywhere, you would see them always with a smile on their face. And at the time, I could never understand how they could feel this way. But they did. So they lived in abundance. And even though most of us would look at that and wonder, how do you feel like you're living in abundance? But they weren't in debt at all.
Right.
And everything they had that they owned. So the third, the other piece of this, as we're going through this, again, we do have to get down to the actual finances, because this is all foundational, because we do not want the love of money to dominate our lives, because to me, money is a tool, no less than if you go to plant a garden, and I was doing some gardening, I really need a shovel. I was too dang cheap to buy the shovel because I was buying so much other stuff. I can only spend so much at one time, and I thought, I can do this much without the shovel, but before I can do the next part, I've got to go buy a shovel because I'm short and I'm small. I need a smaller shovel. My shovel's too big. I can't use it. So I don't know. I am height challenged, shall we say. So finances. Give us a little bit of input on finances.
Well, finances, there's so many principles about finances, but one of the analogies I really like is that money is basically like soldiers in your hands. Money is an army.
Money is an army. Okay, so we got these little dollar bills. Are we lining them up against the wall, or?
Well, a lot depends on what you do with your money. Whether
right.
it is, what is a soldier? A soldier is a guy with a gun in his hand. Is that gun going to be pointed at you or for your benefit? To protect you.
How are we going to use the money to protect us then? If we want the soldiers on our side, and we're the general, I take it.
You better be.
We're the general, and we're directing where these little dollar bill soldiers are going.
Right.
I'm with you.
Right.
Keep going.
Yeah. And so practically speaking, you really got to learn how to manage your money, how to direct your money in the direction that it's going to bring back, multiplication for you. It's going to bring back what you're looking for. And oftentimes immediate gratification without a long-term plan, creates a false system, so to speak, to build your financial world.
So a false feeling of prosperity, because we can
Right.
look around at something and say, well, I'm prosperous because I own something. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, oftentimes people with money don't have the foundation or the tools essentially to build a plan, to see a financial planner and say, hey, you know what should I be doing? I'm 45 years old now. I don't have a retirement plan. What should I be doing? And there's just basic principles that oftentimes we're not taught. Interestingly enough, the law now requires in bankruptcy that debtors take a class beforehand as well as after you file bankruptcy. And time and time again, the class that I recommend is by Dave Ramsey. And
Dave Ramsey has a class?
He has a bankruptcy class.
I didn't even know that.
Yes. Absolutely, he did. Well, he came through bankruptcy, and that was sort of his launch.
Well, I didn't know he had a
pad
bankruptcy-approved class, though. We just
He
send
does.
our clients to whichever one's cheapest at the moment.
Oh, no, I'm not looking at the price as far as that's concerned. Every single one of my clients has said beyond a shadow of a doubt, if they would have learned this stuff in high school, they never would have taken the track that they did.
Which we've talked about before. We are not taught. We have a third grade education in finance.
See how good it was that I showed up tonight?
Yes,
Very good.
See, all my clients from now on are going to benefit from this show.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Now that I know Dave Ramsey has a bankruptcy course, that's
right.
cool.
Yeah.
Why don't we jump into a real quick break here? You could listen to a few of our sponsors, and we'll be right back. You listen to Money and Motivation with Nancy Flemming and special guest Dr. King, attorney, author, and jewelry creator. Be right back.
Are you
Well, that's
experiencing
cool.
computer
Dave,
problems? Is your computer running slow, bogged down with viruses and spyware? You need a reliable and knowledgeable, trustworthy computer service company. Contact Computers, Networks, and More, located in Santan Valley. Get your computer or laptop running in top condition by a certified technician with 20-plus years experience and beta tester from Microsoft. Computers, Networks, and More provides repairs and solutions to any computer-related issue, whether it's software, installation, troubleshooting, updates, or tune-ups. You can trust Computers, Networks, and More. Contact Jeff Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. to schedule an appointment. We can have you up and running quickly, usually within 48 hours. Located in Santan Valley, computers, networks, and more. We're here for you. Contact Jeff at 480-729-8899. That's 480-729-8899.
Are you ready to start taking control of your future and maximize your earning potential? Central Arizona College has smaller class sizes and personalized attention to help you compete in today's tough job market. CAC now serves Santan Valley and Queen Creek. The CAC Santan Center is located in the shops at Copper Basin on Hunt Highway, behind Barrow's Pizza. Stop in and see how taking classes at CAC costs a fraction of a state university, and your credits can transfer. So, if you want to earn real money, you need to learn real skills at Central Arizona College. Enroll in classes today by calling 480-677-7825 or visit www.centralaz.edu or call 480-677-7825 or visit www.centralaz.edu. Central Arizona College, your way. Santan Motorsports, located in Queen Creek, specializes in off-road ATVs, dirt bikes, UTVs, side-by-sides, street bikes, and provides performance work. Santan Motorsports is your local dealership for off-road parts and accessories. They provide and pride themselves on excellent customer service and a staff that understands all aspects of the off-road business. Come in and browse our dealership and find those parts and accessories you've been looking for. Check our website, santanmotorsports.com, for monthly specials as well as used equipment. Santan Motorsports, your one-stop shop for sales, service, and knowledgeable staff. Located in Queen Creek on Power Road and Santan Boulevard, or call 480-988-0580. Santan Motorsports, we're here for you. Hi, Marie here for wannasing.com. Are you looking for professional DJ or karaoke services for your next holiday party or get-together? wannasing.com can provide the best in sound, lighting, and a professional MC to host your next event. Whether it be a company party, birthday party, wedding, or any occasion, wannasing.com is ready to provide the fun and make it a night to remember for years to come. Call 480-664-8801. That's 480-664-8801. Mention this radio ad and receive a special discount for your next fun event. wannasing.com. Are you having plumbing or septic problems? No worries. Call Cartwright's Queen Creek Plumbing and Septic Service. Been in the Valley since 1996. Family owned and operated. Proudly serving East Valley and surrounding areas. With a full range of services from drain cleaning, septic tank pumping, general maintenance and repairs, inspections for the sale of your home. They provide excellent and courteous service for all your plumbing and septic needs. We're not satisfied till you are satisfied. Licensed, bonded, and insured. Call today. Cartwright's Queen Creek Plumbing and Septic Service. Contact Denise at 480-987-8051. That's 480-987-8051.
All right, and we are back with Money and Motivation. Take it away, Nancy.
All right. Well, I thought that we would start with a few to-dos and just some examples of things I know I've seen and Catherine has mentioned in her guide here. And this is something I do. I don't know if anybody else knows. Do any of you carry one bill in your, like a $100 bill or a $50 bill or something that you never spend? Do any of you do this? Am I the only
Are you
one?
asking me or the
Yes.
listeners?
Listeners,
No, I do.
Do you?
Yeah,
I know
I have a $2 bill on my scriptures that we've had for years.
No, I mean just...
I know my wife doesn't.
Okay, well, one of the things that Catherine can give us the reason for this is she's saying just put a bill in your wallet that you're never going to spend. Now, I have a $50 bill, but there's a reason for that. There's a little story behind that that's in my wallet that I do not spend. But make sure you can see it when you open your wallet. Now, Catherine, why would you tell people to do that?
Oftentimes when we live from a perspective of poverty, we perceive lack. And so if you have something visible that says, hey, I'm not lacking, then it creates a different mindset. And it's just a way of retraining your mind and your belief system. And so much of poverty comes from belief system rather than the lack of resources per se.
Well, and so everything's mindset. So people who are succeeding and achieving and are comfortable making money. I know I was at, when I was at the dentist, we were talking about someone we knew, and they said, gosh, that guy, he's just so lucky. Everything he touches turns to gold. We kind of want to pat him on the head. And we all know people like that.
Right.
Why is it everything they touch turns to gold? And they're good people, and they're kind and nice, and everybody likes them. And it's like, gosh, darn it, how do you get that going for yourself? That we all would like to have that happen. But I also think that another part of having that bill in your wallet, whatever denomination you choose, and for me, a lot of times if I get stuck somewhere, I want to have it there too. But it's also the self-discipline. It's to say, first of all, I have enough money, I don't have to spend this. And second, I have the self-discipline that I can keep this in it and not spend it. And you can put it back and then put it back in again. But I have found this, and especially since I read this in your book, I thought, well, it's a good thing I'm experimenting with this since you were coming on the show. So those are some things. So there's suggestion number 1, put something in your wallet where you can see it and don't spend it. And just see and maybe even record how it makes you feel if you're really serious about learning this. And then a second one. Okay, let's pretend, Joe, we're going to pretend we won the lottery.
All right.
There
Yay.
you go. We won the lottery. And what we're going to do with this exercise, and you won $10 million to you, net to you, let's say that. And you're going to write down everything you would do, even maybe think and feel, if you won the lottery. Now, why are we doing this, Catherine?
This is an amazing exercise for people. A lot of times when people are in a difficult place financially, they stop dreaming. Mm-hmm. And so when we open up the door to dreaming again, things start changing. And I had the most amazing experience with a woman when I taught the class that sort of spawned this book, actually. Said, okay, I want you guys all to go home and write down a list of all the things you would do with $1 million if you had it, or 10 million, or whatever number you want. If money were not an object, what would be the things you would pursue? What would you do with all this money? What would what would your life look like? And this woman, she was just like, oh, I can't even do that. She came back the next week and she had written out her list and all of that. And so we took a look at it and I said, okay, now let's write out what stops you from doing that. Well, money. And her dream was to have a house where she could take in unwed pregnant teens and just give of herself to them and be there and mother them. She was a little bit older lady, and she just really wanted to give of herself in that way. She says, but I can't buy a house. How could I possibly do that? And she lived in a house with her husband, but she said, I want to buy a separate house where these women could live and have their babies and at least have a safe place, despite the decision that they've made, or, all of that type of thing. And I said, okay, so let's take a look at this. What is it that's stopping you? She says, I can't get that house. And I said, well, let's dream a little bit. What would it look like? Break it down into steps. What would it look like? Who would you invite in? Do you know a pregnant teen? Do you know somebody you could help? Anyway, the short story of all of this is, she came back the next week. She said, I had the most amazing revelation. She says, I have a spare bedroom. I've talked to my husband. We can bring in a pregnant teen now. And all the walls came down for her. It was just like, I can do this now. I don't have to wait for my $1 million. She's in tears. Her dream materialized like that, and not $1 was spent. And it just transformed her life. And she wrote an amazing testimony back to me. She just said, you have no idea. She said, my dreams have been so cut off. I have been so scared and so limited in my belief systems. And just opening up this concept of dreaming again just really transformed my life.
And who knows what that could lead to in the future, that a house that seemed impossible to her may also become a reality. You never know.
Yeah, she's now in a multi-level business and making money and well on her way probably to getting that house that she can fully materialize that dream. But the door opened because she started dreaming. And so, oftentimes in America, the lottery is the dream. hey, I won the
here's
lottery.
here's an interesting
Right,
concept
Joe?
as well. With healthy dreams like that, now there's unhealthy dreams as well, but
Absolutely.
with healthy dreams like that, even if doors didn't open immediately, or even if the doors didn't open completely to what they were dreaming, you still live a healthier life.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a saying I've always liked, which is reasons come first, answers come second. So we have to have the reason
Right.
in order for us to feel motivated. Because, again, most people are not going to be motivated by what? What are the two things always associated with money? Greed and fear.
Right.
So
Right.
what does greed bring about? We know that. Bankruptcy attorneys stay in business oftentimes. Now, we're not talking about the economic downturns, but a lot of bankruptcies, don't they occur because people overspend? They get a little greedy for what they want.
Absolutely.
And then there's also fear.
Yeah.
So how does fear play into people's money attitudes? What have you seen with that, Catherine?
Right. Well, I mean, interestingly enough, one of the other exercises I put in here is about inventory, and just taking the time to inventory your beliefs about money. And so often we just, okay, well, money doesn't grow on trees, I
Or
mean,
money is the root of all evil.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's so many things that we've been taught as we grew up, so many things we've experienced that have cemented principles in our mind that may or may not be true. And we need to go back through and look at those things and say, is that true? Is that false? And what is that breeding in my life because I'm believing those things? And so oftentimes fear or greed are roots of what drives us towards money. And again, if you go back to your heart and look at what is my heart really all about, what really makes me happy as a person, oftentimes fear or greed, is at the root of those things, and our heart is buried. It's shoved over in a corner, and we're not even pursuing the things that we want that really make us happy. It's just this external drivenness to perform or succeed, or all these different things that drive us in those fear and greed quadrants.
But I think you really have to make sure that you don't get into the rut on the drive for money, that you actually start to love money. Because when you start to love money, it destroys your other facets of your life, I think.
Right. And that's where fear comes in, too, because there's a lot of people who are afraid to be successful or to be too successful because of what others will think about them. And that is true. Years ago, I had a friend who made it available for me to have a little powder blue Cadillac. It was the cutest it was a woman's car. And I got it really inexpensively because of his connections. But I mean to tell you, driving that car on the road, I was treated differently. Now, I had previously, in younger years, had a really junky car. You get treated differently that way too. But it was interesting the way people treat you. So yes, people do react when they see things. But this fear that, gee, if I succeed, and so then we sabotage ourselves isn't so good either. And I think that's where we get down to the root of finding out who we are and what our reasons are. Because you're right, if a person works too hard and loses their reasons, and then they become driven for the dollar. I mean, really, I don't think any of us want money so that we can sit in a room and just rifle through coins, right? I mean, there's really no emotional satisfaction there.
Prosperity needs to have a purpose.
Yes.
And if having a pile of money doesn't go anywhere, but if you have a purpose for it, because you have a dream, because you know yourself, then that money can be directed. The soldiers can go out and accomplish their purpose. But if you just have a stack of money that doesn't have a purpose, what value is it to you or anyone else?
Now, you keep talking about money being soldiers and they're going to go out. Now, what are they going out, what they're doing with their guns, and what's the ultimate goal there?
Well, the ultimate goal is for it to pursue what does actually create happiness for you. If having quality family vacations is a significant thing in your heart, then some measure of money and some allocation in a budget towards that is a good direction of your soldiers, so to speak, your dollars, for those purposes. But if vacations don't mean anything to you and something else does, then direct that money that way.
So when you're talking about the money go out and bringing something back, you're not necessarily talking just about the money going out and compound interest kind of thing and bringing more money back. Not that couldn't happen. And by the way, what about the whole giving away of money? I know there are people who make gifts. We know there are very wealthy people who are very philanthropic and who give money to whatever charitable organizations that touch their heart. What have you seen with that? Is there an economic or monetary principle behind that?
Well, I mean, certainly giving is a biblical principle, and I think, you reap what you sow. If you give, you're going to receive naturally. And
Is
I
it
think
the bread cast out on the water kind of thing?
it will come back to you. I mean, God is generous to those who give, and I see that time and again in the variety of clients that I have. They're like, no, we're not changing this budget item. This is what we give. This is how we're going to live, and even if that means we're sacrificing in another area of our lives, this is how we're choosing to live. And there's a restoration that comes, I think, oftentimes for people who are givers, in a much increased acceleration over those who are not givers. But I think that that's significant. I make it a practice in my office that at the beginning of the year I offer, based on the number of 2010 is when I started doing it, but I said 10 free bankruptcies to the needy in the community. And there were certain qualifications, not just anybody. I had 110 people at my door the first day. I was like, not everybody here qualifies. But but bottom line is, there's huge need in our world, and increasing, certainly. And so, just by maintaining a practice of giving into the community, that sows goodwill, at bottom. So every year I do that. And a lot of people chose me after that simply because I was giving. I want the attorney that actually gives into this community. And so it was, it turned out to be a benefit to me because people came to me because I had that nature about me and it was visible. And so I think giving is a huge part of prosperity.
But you didn't give the 10 free bankruptcies as a marketing tool. That was not what was in your heart.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm very committed to the community that I live in and really want to see.
Because I think attitude has a large play too. When we can just even go back to the book/movie Scrooge and see what happens, the principle of giving. And years ago, there's a famous motivational speaker that I listened to a lot and had a very strong economic principle that said give. And his, which was a non-religious number, he said give 10%, gave the examples of where he gave and just treated it as if you give, then you're giving from abundance, and there's something about the laws of abundance that it will come back to you. And he was pretty adamant about some of the stories he described of what he did, similar to what you're doing, whether it's the free bankruptcies or whether you're giving something. For example, a while back, you were always in a store at some point in our life where there's somebody there that maybe it's a kid and they just don't have quite the right amount of change, and so you just give them a little bit. It brightens their day and it's really nothing out of your pocket, but I think it's all in attitude where that comes about.
Absolutely.
In fact, that goes to a lot of the philosophies I talk about at times on my show, that forcing someone to give doesn't produce the same result. So in increasing someone's mandatory level of giving doesn't produce that in society.
Right.
But encouraging the free offering of oneself, and we're not just talking about money either. Oneself, one's other non-monetary resources is just as good for helping yourself and society move forward.
Right. Absolutely.
Right, because we need money. I mean, prosperity is not, again, just about money, but you said, again, time and resources and energy.
For example, the free bankruptcy, quite frankly, unless you're paying for their costs, that's not really money you're giving, a little bit because you're paying staff and stuff, but it's your time.
Right.
It's your time that you're giving, which
Absolutely.
is really a better gift if you think about it.
Right.
Yeah, time is you can't ever get that back.
I think, if I can just interject, I think another resource that we really discount that can really breed quality into life is our words. And the power of our words is so diminished. I mean, we say things so flippantly and so ignorantly without regard to the consequence that it breeds. But I think if we really take the time to speak a word to somebody that's intentional and thought out, it can be transformational in their day. One of the things that I say to my clients when they come in, I said, well, how are you? And pretty much everybody says, I'm here. I mean, typically when you're coming to see a bankruptcy attorney, you're not in the best place. And I look at them, I look in their eyes, and I say, well, I can promise you won't be leaving here until you laugh or smile. The looks I get from people, they're like, what's that all about? But just engaging their heart and engaging what brought them to that place and taking the time to talk through what their situation is and all of that, invariably I'm able to say something to them that somehow shifts their experience and their perception and their perspective on their life. That they leave laughing or smiling. They're like, you were right. This is amazing. There's something different here. And so for me, words are really, really valuable and powerful resource and tool at our disposal. Think about what would happen if you did that in your family. If every day you said something significant and meaningful to each of your children or to your spouse. It's transformational, and we just flippantly say things and, don't have meaningful conversations. But I think, I don't have money, I don't have, and therefore I can't. You do have a mouth. You do have a brain. Connect the two with your heart and say something meaningful to somebody. Watch what it does to them and watch what comes back to you. So I think that's another really powerful resource that we need to access, because it starts shifting relationships. And when relationships start shifting, you start seeing things open up. You see new opportunities. You see things from a different perspective, and there's a real power to that can bring another level of prosperity, if you will, in your life.
I wish I could remember the name of this movie that I saw recently about a young teenage girl who was just kind of struggling a little bit in life and received a letter from somebody that said nice things about her potential and how wonderful she was, and she thought it was from somebody she must have known. So she starts trying to research to find out who it is, and she ends up finding out it's from a guy in a assisted living facility type place that goes through a phone book randomly, picking names and sending nice letters out, and it changes her life and makes it so that she then starts reaching out to others with this power of words that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the exercises we did in the class that I taught with this companion guide, I called it Backdraft. And we had been in the class 3 or 4 times together, so people knew each other maybe an hour and a half times 4, 6 hours they'd seen each other, and had some limited interactions with each other. Anyway, I had everybody have a piece of paper taped to their back, and I gave everybody a pen, and I said, okay, can't leave this room until you walk around and write something of consequence in a positive way on somebody's back. I see you as whatever it is, intelligent or whatever quality struck them. And let me tell you, it was the most transformational experience for people. Just how can I write something? There was so much resistance initially. And I said, hey, let's do it. Come on. It'll be over before you know it if you get out there and do it. But certainly you can see something in every single person in this room that can be positive and meaningful to them. And these people they did it to me too. Well, you have to do it too. Okay. And so everybody started writing these things down, and everybody who read them, they were just like, oh, you see me that way? Wow. And I had to do it anonymously. Nobody knew who was writing what on each other's backs.
Right.
So at least it was, somewhat safe relationally. But by the same token, one woman wrote me an email the next day. She said, I have never, ever had a more powerful life experience than that.
Really?
I never knew people could see me like that. I don't see myself like that. So I really need to ask some questions why I don't see myself like that.
Did they ask you when they were resisting, what does this have to do with money and bankruptcy? Did they ask you that? Because my first thought was, if I was in a class, because I was going through bankruptcy and I'm bummed about it, I would say, what does this have to do with money? Why do we do this? Did they ask that? I'm just curious how that
My class
came
is
about.
not mandatory. It's voluntary.
Oh, okay. That makes the difference.
Yeah. So people are there because they want to be. And they realize, wow, I'm not in the place I want to be. And maybe this class has something to offer me. And the book itself is called Paths Multiple to Prosperity. There is not one path to prosperity.
Amen.
We are unique individuals. The website that hosts this book is called Brighter Than Diamonds. And this piece I'm actually wearing is called Brighter Than Diamonds, or that's what I named it. But the reason I called it that is that I believe that our lives individually can shine brighter than diamonds. I mean, obviously, diamonds are the most sparkly thing on the earth, so to speak. They're the most brilliant and, valuable and all of those things. And so I think, individually, if we walk in the essence of our identity, who we believe ourselves to be, who we're created to be. I mean, we're all designed for a purpose. We're not just random human beings on this earth. If we walk in that, we don't need clones. Nobody needs another clone of whoever the latest star is. We need to be who we are, and in that we can shine. We can be brilliant in and of ourselves. And so just coming to that place of understanding of what our identity is and having the freedom to walk in that, that's what's going to lead you to your prosperity. And so prosperity will look different for every single person. And so it's a journey. It doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come instantly. It's a process that we walk on to find out exactly, where it leads us and how that's going to materialize in our lives by the choices we make. But it starts by looking on the inside. And so that was the essence of that exercise, is for people to see what other people saw in them that they couldn't see themselves in some instances.
So one of the wonderful blessings of being on the air is time just stands still. It's been an hour.
Yeah, no, I noticed, but her story was so good. Yeah, we're
It was
we're
indeed.
7:15. That was a beautiful way to end, don't you think?
It was.
Very
and,
beautiful.
And I congratulate you on the book, on the class, on what you're doing to help people. What a great thing. What a wonderful guest you've been.
Well, thank
What
you.
a wonderful guest.
Yeah, opening our eyes that prosperity to as you were talking, I was thinking some people enter lines of work that don't pay a lot monetarily, and where would we be if those people only wanted money? We'd lose some of the most wonderful helpers and some of the most wonderful contributors to society and to people. So I think it was a great, yes, it was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Northern California.
Let's make
Thank
sure
you for
we,
having me.
because this will be broadcast, it goes on a website where people click and view it afterwards. Let's make sure there's good information about how people would contact you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell them, how do they get a hold of you if they want to find you?
You can find me at brighterthandiamonds.com.
brighterthandiamonds.com.
You can find me at kinglawbankruptcy.com if you're in Northern California, and you can also find it at kingdomcreations.biz, B-I-Z.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for listening. This has been a great evening. You have been with Money and Motivation with Nancy, Mark, Joe, and our special guest, Catherine King, and best wishes for a nice evening.
God bless.
Our family pets are such a big part of our lives. That's why Kelly's Critter Clips of Queen Creek and Sun Lakes has been providing pet grooming services for over 10 years. Your dog's comfort is very important to us, so we take the time to treat your pet with care, love, and professional attention it deserves. We welcome any size and breed and feature shampoo and conditioning, styling, flea and tick dips, ear cleaning, nail trimming, and so many other services that will leave your pet looking good and smelling good and feeling great, all at an affordable price. Located in Queen Creek and Sun Lakes, call now for an appointment, 480-655-5066. Kelly's Critter Clips.
Got pain? Call Dr. Wayne. Chiropractic care may be your answer. Queen Creek Back Care. Located in Queen Creek on 20231 East Ocotillo Road on the backside of True Value Hardware Store. Safe, effective treatment with chiropractic and same-day appointments to speed your healing. With more than a decade of experience and hundreds of satisfied patients, Dr. Wayne Christensen will provide you the pain relief you've been searching for. Dr. Wayne is fully qualified to treat the entire family, even children. Call for an appointment